Hi, welcome to episode number 4 of the Better Conversations podcast. We speak to the leaders of today so that the leaders of tomorrow can be inspired, enriched, and better than those who came before them. Today, I'm with Kaan Akkanat, who is a sales coach and startup advisor. He helps founders to go to market and sell better with lean systems and processes. Hi, Kaan, how are you?
Hey Tavian, I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. I'm doing great. So you know how we kick off this podcast. We go straight into it. So would you like to tell me one of the key pivotal moments in your life that got you to where you are today?
Yeah, let's get on with it. And again, thanks for having me. A key pivotal moment. I mean, this changes every now and then. So I think I answer this question differently, depending on my mood.
Yeah.
But I think one of the key pivotal moments have been the moment that I decided to study abroad. So I'm originally from Istanbul.
Okay.
And that initial decision to, let's say, to flex the muscles and just like wing out from the home was quite pivotal, and it has been influential. So the decision to go and study in Germany, study at an American university in Germany, then kind of created this domino effect for me, which then led to Dublin chapter opening up and so on. So if I really track back from today to a few years, or let's say even a decade back right now, that was probably the pivotal moment.
Okay, so what was the main reason for actually wanting to study abroad?
At the time, I think there were a few reasons. One of them was just the experience and adventure value. That was A. B, I also went to a private school back in Istanbul, which was really geared towards an international education. And was kind of the natural path for anyone to really consider international options. And I always felt like I would feel better staying in Europe instead of pursuing anything intercontinental at that point of time. And I got very lucky at the end. Hey, I even met my wife there in Germany, at the university. So it did wonders, not just in academics, but many other areas of my life as well.
Yeah, and I guess while you were studying abroad, what were some of the things that I guess you had to really pick up? Because you said you had to sort of move country. What were some of those things you had to learn and develop along that journey?
Yeah, it was a crazy journey, especially because I went to this small campus university in northern Germany in this city called Bremen, where we basically had people from 110 nations. And like a lot of universities will have emphasis on diversity, but then it will be just like a symbolic diversity. Whereas on my first day, I got into my room and I didn't even recognize the flag of my roommate. Turns out he was from Myanmar. I had to quickly adjust to this environment where I think at the time people were referring to it as globalization, a test tube. That's where I find myself in as well. So I had to get accustomed to a very joint way of living with people from different cultures, different way of doing things, and different standards and everything.
Yeah. And is there anything in particular that from that, I guess, learning experience that you now use today in sort of that startup advisor role?
I think never taking anything at face value. And being able to relate to people coming from different backgrounds, whether they are, creating raw materials from olive extracts, or they're selling timepieces, or, if they're building a personal finance app, no matter what the use case or the background of the founders or the teams that I work with, I tend to find that common denominator, which helps me to see everything from their perspective and really put myself into their shoes without going into this generic advisor mode in saying, oh, here are the 10 best practices, follow this, follow that. That's a very bloggish, generic advice. I try to steer clear from that as much as possible. And granted, there are moments that you cannot avoid getting into the cliches and covering the basics, but I try to bring in that cross-cultural savviness and empathy to make it a bit more compelling for people that I try to support.
Yeah, and I know you said that, going to an international university was really helpful for you to develop that skill. For someone who might not have the opportunity to maybe travel abroad, what are some of the things that they could potentially do to develop that skill as well, of not taking things at face value and having an open mind to things?
Well, I know that cyber traveling is a huge trend right now. I know that a lot of people are traveling through YouTube, and there are a few channels that I'm obsessed about as well, whether that's just following a train in Norway or, watching the authors in somewhere in US. I don't think that there's much limitation in that sense in terms of like how we can get exposed. Obviously, it's probably never as feel good as just like being there and experiencing those things. But for someone who maybe doesn't have the means, I would say just like putting yourself into those environments, and those environments could be online as well, to just maximize that international exposure. Try to read as much as possible from different sources, not being stuck to any particular point of view, agenda, or school of thought. I think anything to invest in that mental fluidity pays dividends down the line in the career.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting point. Trying to, I guess, diversify what you put into your brains, because I guess all the algorithms that are thrown at us, YouTube, Instagram, they throw things at us that we repeatedly want, and that's actually it's quite hard to actually get away from that.
Absolutely.
What do you say to that?
Which is very dangerous, because then you have this bubbler experience. I don't even know if that is a word, but hey, it's not. So be it. We all live in our bubbles anyway, and then those content bubbles that you mentioned really nurtures that. And I find that a bit dangerous, and that's why I think there comes a point every now and then, like take my content habits as an example. I only use LinkedIn and YouTube actively. And every now and then I really want to watch something random, whether that's a camping video or whether that's a sleep expert from Tokyo talking about, burnout or something. I enjoy those kind of things. I think you really need to put a proactive effort right now to be able to consume different things. And just like how you would watch your diet and nutrition, you need to really invest in what you're exposed to as well, whether that is listening to top hits from Cambodia or, just watching random stuff on YouTube. Obviously the possibilities are endless.
So I guess we started the journey at your international sort of university journey. What was sort of the next pivotal moment in your life to get you to where you are today after that university journey?
So to give people some context, I studied economics and management. And then obviously the next logical step was, okay, what am I going to do next? Am I going to go pursue more studies on top of studies, or am I going to go to private sector right away to gain some job experience? And I got very fortunate, within the course of my studies to be able to get an internship at Google. That kind of opened my mind and really helped me discover that, okay, such life exists and it's within reach. It was a big deal. Like if it wasn't for the moment of going to study abroad, I would have probably said, hey, the internship at Google. And funny enough, it was also right at the time that the movie was released. So I remember people's reactions to it and all sorts of interesting questions that I received at the time. But yeah, looking back, that was that really set a bar in terms of, okay, this is a traditional path of, hey, you graduate, now you're looking for a job. What are the good jobs or attractive jobs out there? Hey, why not go with big tech? That seems to be alluring. So that was kind of the the journey after the university per se.
And what was it like working for a big tech firm? Just tell me a little bit more about that.
To put things in order, I obviously spent 3 months at Google. That was a summer internship. And then after graduation, I went to, I took a gap year for 6 months, which was very important and beneficial for personal reasons and mental health, and really giving myself some break after pretty intense time of study. And then the whole LinkedIn journey started. I joined LinkedIn as a sales development representative. So my job was really just positioning myself on those top of the funnel conversations. And I think what I learned there, and that whole 5 years of experience, which I now describe as like 50 shades of sales. And the way I was able to learn from some of the best in their jobs and really just be exposed to all sorts of different companies and seeing what works, what doesn't work, what are the practices that kill businesses, what are the practices that kill people, or their spirit, or like make them hate their jobs or love their jobs. So it really helped me to observe everything, but from a safe place, especially initially, when you're in that like kind of more beginner roles, let's say. So that was very helpful, which then helps you to craft your own way of doing things. So if you're lucky enough to be in an organization where you can create your own style, which I was at the time, then you'll be able to see and learn from other people's mistakes, organization mistakes, and hopefully, put in some incremental improvements in your way and put your spin into it, and hopefully create some positivity around yourself and what you do. So that was a very transformative experience for me overall in terms of my life approach to work, how I identify myself with work. So one of the big things about working at big tech is that people immediately associate themselves as, the LinkedIn guy, Google guy, X guy. And this is the reaction that you receive a bit from outside world as well. But a couple of years in, you also understand that you're just a smaller piece in a huge machine. And that should hopefully come with a level of perspective and humbling experience, and understanding that, hey, this is someone else's journey. I'm playing my part. I get my benefits and lessons out of it, but my journey is different. And that understanding is really helpful then to put a lot of other things in life into perspective as well.
Yeah, I guess just to go back to the sales bit, what actually got you into sales? What made you want to go into sales?
So I love storytelling. Okay. I've always been a writer, a reader, fascinated by big climax stories or stories that are just like, that just flop at the end because of construct or whatever that is. So, and I like talking, if it was not clear already. So with that, combined with my kind of, I don't want to say commercial savvy, but I always believed in value of exchange. It doesn't even have to be a monetary exchange. It can be barter. It can be, like, I always had this appreciation to whoever contributed to my life. And that translated into me seeing, okay, any two organism, building up a symbiotic relationship, it's valuable. Whether that is business to business, human to human, podcaster to audience. It always captivated me. So I found myself in a role where I can do a lot of these things. I can relate to people, learn from organizations, talk to their biggest objectives, desires, fears. And I was like, okay, there are some good stories here. So that's what kept me going, and it still keeps me going to date.
Yeah, and that's really interesting, because you said something at the end as well of that last section where you said that you're just one small piece in a really big machine. And I guess the idea that you sort of have that perspective and then understand that you have a different story. I really want you to delve deeper into that because that's really interesting. What did you find about yourself that was different? What was your story inside of big company like LinkedIn?
Yeah, so for anyone who's listening to this, I would really recommend them to read The Alliance from Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn. And in that book, he talks about different employee types or different ways employees associate themselves with that journey. He calls it tour of duty. And there are people who are in more transactional tour of duty. So in and out, this is a quick job. I'm a job hopper.
Yeah.
That's one way of working, right? I'm going to come in and transform myself. Transformational tour of duty.
Yeah.
That's another way of looking at it. Probably you're looking at someone who will be working there for a couple of years and change a couple of roles and have really some level of embracement of values. You would have someone foundational, like someone who really identifies themselves with the core values of this company or whatever the business is trying to create. I was really around the realm of foundational / transformational. That's what kept me at LinkedIn for 5 years. And to date, I still carry some of those values with me. But just like anything else, businesses change, people change. And you understand that, if you want things to be done in, your way or in the way that you really appreciate with the, working with people with the same mental wavelength and so on and so forth, then you need to dynamically adapt and oftentimes, disrupt your own comfort zones a bit as well. So that was one of the decisions that I had to take after 5 years at LinkedIn. Okay, hey, there are things that I like, but there are also things that I do not like, just like anywhere else, like nobody's perfect. What can I do differently? And what are the ways that I can challenge myself? And that kind of brought the decision of taking a bit of break, which then obviously coincided with COVID as well. And then I was still not sure about what to do, but then one thing led to another, and I ended up kicking off my own coaching and consulting practice.
Yeah, and tell me a little bit about that as well. I guess the journey to that and kicking it off. What were some of the emotions, I guess, around sort of leaving, a big company and going off and starting your own?
A lot of self-awareness, self-audit. There's a lot of whenever people ask me this question at the time, I was like, hey, 3 out of 7 days in a week, I'm like, great, ecstatic. Hey, this is the best decision I made. I'm like flying on my own. Unchained, freedom. I was in that kind of a mood. But then there were also 4 days in a week where I was like, oh, shoot. Like I'm on my own right now. A lot of fear. It's obviously the road less traveled, right? So when people leave corporate jobs, the common practice is going for another corporate job. Or if you're lucky enough or passionate about a problem in the world, then you will start your own business. But then, going solo is something that is not very common, at least in my immediate social circle. So that's what kind of governed my emotional world at the time. A lot of unknown, a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of childlike wonder in a sense as well. Because I was I use this analogy so often at the time that my wife hates it now, but I was like a kid in the candy shop. I was like, this coaching looks interesting, but I love this consulting as well. Oh, I like working with these startups. But I also like blogging. Hey, how about my podcasting? So you have this like fireworks in your brain. And there's this common theme around all of them, which is, again, hopefully moving something from point A to point B, a story of transformation, just a story in general. But I was all over the place. And to date, I'm probably still a bit all over the place. So that state doesn't change. But what happens is that you become more anti-fragile and you become much more refined in the way you embrace that, I suppose.
And I guess to sort of round up, what's sort of one thing that you would advise your younger self? You've gone through sort of, I'll say, two key pivotal moments, sort of having that openness, and that university was really helpful to establishing that mindset. And then you also sort of went through the big tech phase where you sort of were able to pick up sales experience and also other valuable key lessons as well. I guess I want to ask one more question as well, actually, before if you can answer two things. I guess one thing you would advise your younger self, and then also how did you manage that uncertainty as well? You went through quite an uncertain period in your life. How did you manage that uncertainty?
I try to reframe uncertainty as something like an experiment. There's no experiment with 100% certainty, right? Like that's why it's experiment. That's why it's exciting. You want to, validate or devalidate or invalidate your hypothesis. So I tried to reframe my mind in that. I would say, partial success, because for many years I was operating on really results driven, everything you do shows up type of an environment. And that came with kind of a certain way of assessing yourself and having a scorecard for yourself. So completely overhauling that scorecard into, hey, we're open to mistakes right now, and failures are appreciated. Or actually, there's nothing like failure. It's actually another token on top of each other to put your ducks in order. It was not the easiest of conversations that I had with myself. I was also used to things being structured, things being rather predictable, and so on. But I opted in and tried to embrace that uncertainty as much as possible. Even today, like I'm probably gliding through that uncertainty in a much better way than I was used to maybe a year ago. Yeah. But there are certain moments that comes to you and you're like, is it all worth it? You ask those questions to yourself. And I think like this is an ongoing process. So it will not be definitive. And as long as you enjoy what you're doing, you just treat it a day at a time and it goes on. An advice that I would give to my younger self would be probably just staying clear of any template-based thinking. And what I mean by that is that we're going through a chaotic time in the world where a lot of the templates are being redefined. We're thinking about the work is changing, the relationships are changing, the family structures are changing, technology is changing. And I think a lot of the templates that we've been carrying with ourselves are also changing. And I didn't, like, when I look back, I don't have a moment of saying, oh, shoot, like this template didn't work out for me, or this initial path that I set for myself didn't work out for me. I got fortunate to be able to look back and say like, oh, it played out beautifully for me actually. But then looking back, I think it will be probably even better, or even more like intriguing to see what would I be doing if I didn't have any structured thinking or any just like not following any template, not thinking about that employment after university. And granted, there are realities of the world. Like one of the benefits of big tech is obviously you clear your student debt right away. There are those like mortal benefits and really material and tangible things in life as well. But I guess just like that openness. And I know this is like a very vague, intangible concept to talk about, but I think people will get it in the sense that like you don't have to look your left, right, or blogs or even podcasts to decide what is the life that suits you. I think it just comes down to really tuning into yourself and maybe even just eliminating few of those lifestyles that do not suit you and taking it from there. I think that could be a good way of looking at it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Kaan. Is there anywhere that people can find you to round off?
Unsurprisingly, they can find me through LinkedIn. where obviously my name, surname.com is my website as well. So, those are the two go-to platforms.
Okay, great. Thanks for coming on, Kaan. Really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. And thanks everyone. Hope to see you on the next episode. And you've just listened to another Better Conversation. Thank you.